we don't want anything.
Live
I think it's still on live.
I'm just starting the new live stream. Please wait.
Okay.
And then I will set it the other to private.
Yes, Suganya has joined. I can't see her though.
Wait a second.
webinar audience join
I think they're slowly joining. Vidya.
Oh, Suganya has joined as a
attendee, not as panelist. Can we make her a panelist?
You can promote her. You can promote her. You can find anybody and click. Vidya ninga avada co-host agirbo Vinodh.
Paniach. Okay.
Suganya, welcome.
Hello. Thanks.
Oh, nice necklace.
It's live, so.
Okay. So
a note to participants is that you'll have to enter the questions in the Q&A, right? And to panelists, you can only use the chat. You will not be able to use the Q&A to ask questions. Of course, you can ask the questions live if you had.
So we will start. Namaskarams to everybody. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you for attending this Granthalipi session. We come from a tradition with a long history of Bhasha and Lipi diversity. So much so that there was a Samskrita Vidwan Nyaya Shiromani Shri Sudarshan who had penned a humorous Laghunatakam called Lipi Sangramaha. That play begins with an argument between Nandinagari Lipi and Granthalipi as to who is the most important and best among them. Finally, a Vidwan and the Vidushi come and bring various manuscripts, and all the Lipis identify each of their manuscripts, and then they all realize that each one of them is as important as the other. So, coming back to today, the purpose of this session is twofold. One is to increase awareness of Granthalipi, then introduce the tools and fonts that facilitate the process of learning, transcription, and transmission. The inspiring story of the success of the core Sharada team in reviving Sharada Lipi is one of the primary motivations here. And the speakers of today were also involved in that aspect as well. We hope educational institutions and organizations will take up the creation of formal Granthalipi courses. So I thank all the three speakers of today's session for their time and expertise. Due to the diversity of participants, this session will be in English. So one person speaks from the perspective of a traditional scholar, the second from the standpoint of technology, and the third from the standpoint of manuscripts. And one important note, since we are in March, there may be people from certain time zones which have a time shift for the sessions. We will adhere to the policy that all the sessions will be in Indian Standard Time. With that, I will introduce the speaker of today, first speaker of today.
Should I start?
Oh, okay. ஆரம்பிச்சிருங்க ஒரு நிமிஷம்.
वर्णतनो अमृतवर्णे नियतमनुवर्णितेऽपि योगीन्द्रैः निर्णीतिकरणदूरे Varnayitum Devi Dehi Samarthyam. As requested by Srimati Vidya Jayaraman of Dharmadhara Patishala. I'm happy to share a few thoughts regarding the Granthalipi, its importance from the traditional point of view, and of course our eminent and well skilled colleagues will be presenting the other aspects of the script. So as we'll probably be learning on the participants of these classes or these lessons will be learning on in the later sessions from Shri Vinodh, I presume. But anyway, I will just give a very, very brief summary of the history of the Granthalipi, I think. So, as we all probably know, what is known as Brahmi today, of course, the name was given later on during the early days of Bharatiya epigraphy. So, that script, the origins of Brahmi are an entirely different topic of discussion that I'm not going to go into right now. So from Brahmi, we see that Brahmi was prevalent all over Bharat. We find a 2000-year-old or maybe some even older inscriptions from right from northern Bharat to southern Bharat and even in Sri Lanka. So the southern branch of Brahmi, as time passes, obviously, when in the olden days there was no such single thing as a single standardized script. So what some person writes, another person sees, and they add their own aesthetic interpretations to it. And or even if not going to the extent of aesthetic interpretations, each person has their own stylistic way of expressing or drawing or writing a script. So when that becomes the adarsha or the example for somebody else in a later period of time to write further, then again slowly by each person who is writing the script changes slowly. So approximately we can see that by the 3rd century CE of the current era, we see that Brahmi starts to develop regional variations, and probably we can say that around the 5th century we can identify something that is clearly Southern Brahmi, and that is clearly, it has its own special features. And it was at this point of time that what is sometimes called Pallava Grantha, it was exported from Bharat by the seafaring merchant people of mainly of Tamil Nadu, probably, to the Southeast Asian nations like Thailand, Burma, Java, Sumatra, and so on, Bali especially. And they, from that, what is retrospectively, maybe we can call it Pallava Grantha, these other scripts are also developed, and we can also trace the graphical similarities of those Southeast Asian scripts. So that was a very early branch of from Bharatiya Grantha. So Grantha, I think at this point, because this is where I start calling the script Grantha, I think I should just note that probably this is the only script, maybe I'm mistaken, I hope not, that is named after writing books. So on one hand, when we call Sharma is probably the only script that is named after the Devata of learning. On the other hand, probably that is of the northern end of current Bharat, that is Kashmir. So on the southern end of current Bharat, we have the Grantha script, and that is learning is embodied in books. That, as I mentioned at the beginning of the verse, the next immediate next verse says Pustaka Japavata Haste Varadabhaja Chinha Charu Bahulate Karpuramara Dehe Vagishwari Shodhayashu Mamacheta. So the Devata of learning is depicted with a book in her hand. So book is called as Grantha, and because in Tamil Nadu these traditional sacred books were written in the script, this book, the script name came to be known as the Grantha script. And because the common usage, that another reason was that the script commonly used for the common language of the region, Tamil, was a separate script. Again, I'll go ahead into a brief history of and the relationship between the two scripts presently. So right now I'm just talking about the nomenclature. So because in other Kannada, Telugu and other regions, because of the linguistic, the diction or the set of phonemes in those languages or in the language that was used in those regions was comparable to that of Sanskrit. So they did not have two separate scripts for writing the regional language and for writing Sanskrit or Prakrit. But here in Tamil Nadu, because the regional language has a much shorter set of phonemes, that is, Tamil has a smaller set of phonemes. So when writing Sanskrit or Prakrit, and as Vinodh and others also will be showing to you, just like Sanskrit Granthas were there, we have something, there is even an orthographic style called Jaina Grantha. And we actually, Vinodh and I were also part of including that one specific character which is in Unicode, which was needed for the textual representation of Jaina Grantha. Anyway, so because of this difference, so the script that was used for the regional language Tamil was separate, and Grantha was used for Granthas alone, mostly for academic study probably, and of course definitely for inscriptions. So as you can see from after the Pallava, what is called what I earlier termed as the Pallava period in the 5th century, as we come later on to around the 8th century, we see sort of a branching off where we can identify that Grantha or the region, the script that was used in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, what is currently Tamil Nadu, Kerala region, it develops its own characteristics as distinct from what was used in the Deccan region or the Telugu Kannada region, I suppose I can call it. So after this 8th century, we can clearly or confidently identify something as the Grantha script. And of course, it is not only the Pallava, but also the Jayaraman and Pandya inscriptions, lots of inscriptions, whether in copper plates or on stone, or obviously we don't have manuscript records from that far back in time. So after this, slowly, as we progress towards about the 10th century CE, we probably we can say at this point, around this point, what is the Western Grantha or what is the earlier precursor to the today's Malayalam and Tulu Tigalari scripts, that has its own, so what shall I say, a rounded nature that gets identified separately. And around the time of the Pallavas, around this period between the 5th to 8th century, yet another thing happened here is that the script which was earlier used for writing Tamil, that was called Vattavithi, in later on inscriptions we find direct reference to the script being called Vattam. So that script which was used for writing Tamil slowly went out of use due to the Pallava supremacy, because the Pallavas, they adapted some characters from Vattavithi, and they used the overall structure of Grantham, the upright nature of Grantham. Vattavithi was sort of slanted to the left, and in this structure of Grantham, they adapted the letters from Vattavithi, and they effectively created what is the ancestor of today's Tamil script. So today's Tamil script can be termed as a transition or a hybrid between what was then the Grantha script of those times and Vattavithi. So later on, due to the supremacy of the Pallavas and later on the Cholas, who favored this Tamil script over Vattam, Vattavithi started getting delegated to the Pandya region, and later on, probably around the 13th century, it almost disappeared altogether. So right after the Chola period of around the 10th century, the high days of the Cholas, we find that later on during the Vijayanagara period or 13th century, we can find from 13th century to today, we have lots of similarities, and probably we can start terming that as maybe an early form of the modern Tamil script, because of the overall structure gets retained after the 13th century. We don't find too many differences, I believe. So this is the, and later on, of course, after printing came, after manuscript records which we find today, we find even more similarity to what we currently know as Grantha, and definitely after printing is probably the time which is around, maybe I can call it the 16th to 17th centuries, slowly printing started coming. And in the 18th century, I mean, earlier it was like in the form of woodcut, and later on during the 18th, or definitely during the 19th centuries, we had actual metal forms, metal print. So today, as far as I know, when I inquired in Kumbakonam many years back, when Sri Vinodh and I, we were working, and along with other friends, one Herr Almas from Germany, who probably did a pioneering work on the Unicode Grantha font. Of course, Grantha was not yet encoded in Unicode at that time, but he used the Bengali encoding. Surprisingly, the Bengali encoding. So far away geographically, but it has structural similarities. So he actually used that. At that point of time, it was much more similar, even though we did have the Malayalam encoding. He used the Bengali encoding, and he created the probably the very first usable Unicode based, even though it was not official Unicode Grantha, Unicode based Grantha font. So at that time, myself, Sri Vinodh, and Shriramana, we started working on the Grantha Unicode encoding proposal. So because and later on, after crossing many stages, finally Grantha was encoded in Unicode in 2014, I believe. So after this, of course, I mean, I probably jumped right to the 21st century. So in the interim, we do have these lots of manuscripts in Grantha and lot of later on inscriptions. And one important thing I believe I should mention here is that Tamil and Grantha, they were largely treated not entirely as two entirely separate scripts, definitely not as the same script either, because we find a lot of matching and borrowing from Grantha into Tamil writings, even sometimes even as spelling mistakes, or even in proper Tamil words, sometimes getting Grantha letters introduced, and sometimes Grantha symbols and Tamil symbols get mixed in inscriptions and all that we see. So they have in their mind a big set, super set of Tamil and Grantha letters, the early writers. I mean, I'm talking about the 18th century or so, the writers who created those inscriptions, or even definitely before that also. So they have an entire gamut of letters. So they will favor the Tamil letters when they are writing Tamil language text, and they will favor Grantha letters when either writing Sanskrit language or Prakrit language text. But in inscriptions, I believe it is mostly Sanskrit only. Regarding Prakrit use for Grantha, it is right now it's probably restricted to manuscripts, or other scholars will have more information on that. So now after the epigraphic or after the stone or copper inscription period, we come to the manuscript period, and after the manuscript period in printing. Yeah, I was talking about that. So when I inquired in Kumbakonam about that, they said that the earliest font, or what was called font in those days, or maybe I should call it typeface, for Grantha, the metal typeface was Grantha of the Sharma Vilas Press in Kumbakonam. It came here around 1903 or 1905, they said. So since then, it was so, I believe they told me it was brought from Germany, and our two colleagues are right now in Germany. And from Germany, the typeface came, and right until today, the same single typeface remains the favorite of all our traditional scholars. They still ask me this Google Noto font. No, you give me that old Kumbakonam letters. You did the font for Grantham. No, people believe that when we did the work for encoding, they believe we created the font. But of course, creating the font is an entirely different story. So anyway, though Noto Sans Grantha and Noto Self Grantha are available today, our traditional scholars still want the old Kumbakonam letters, because till today we still use the huge majority of our traditional texts, mainly religious and other Shastra texts also, lots of Itihasas, Puranas and Kavyas also we still have. And thankfully, thanks to archive.org and Digital Library of India and all these, we are right now able to access a much bigger corpus of Grantha texts. So definitely, anybody examining that corpus will agree that this same single Kumbakonam font has been used everywhere. And yet another thing about, as I told you earlier, not only in the inscriptions, but later on we do have an official style called Maniprava. That's actually, it is not just something associated with the script, but it is actually a mix of two languages, as we might have already heard. So Maniprava books mainly pertaining to the Vaishnava tradition, but probably some other texts also. We have where the Sanskrita parts of words, a single word, will begin with a Sanskrita dhatu and end with a Tamil verbal ending, or Sanskrita Prajapadikam and end with a Tamil noun ending. So those words were written with the Sanskrita part in Grantha and the Tamil part in Tamil script. So here, because it's a later period where you have printing.
Raman, Anna, ஒரு நிமிஷம் ஆடியோ கிளியரா இல்லன்னு நிறைய பேர் சொல்றா. கொஞ்சம் மைக் வால்யூம்.
நீங்க மைக் வால்யூம் ரெடியூஸ் பண்ணானே லினக்ஸ்ல மைக் வால்யூம் 50% நீங்க வெச்சிடலாம்னு it should be good enough.
Automatically adjust microphone volume. Is this better?
Yeah, I think it's way better. Continue பண்ணுங்க.
Okay.
எல்லாருமே பெட்டர்ங்கடா.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, this script, the orthographic style called Maniprava, where you have the Sanskrita parts of words printed in Grantha and the Tamil parts of words printed in Tamil. So that's yet another important style of usage of Grantha in a single text, in a single passage. You will have Tamil and Grantha, but here obviously because it's the later period, you have, and it's printing, you have more standardization where more attention is probably paid to the segregation of the Tamil parts of words and the Grantha parts of words. But yet again, we do find that here and there some mixing has happened. So anyway, so the Tamil and Grantha encodings which we have right now, we will be probably once more corpuses are created in using these encodings, we may run into some technical difficulties in how to mix and match these characters. So some Tamil characters, some characters are available for Ya, which is needed for the Jaiminiya Samaveda. It is right now available only in the Tamil block. So probably we will have to use that character from the Tamil block in conjunction with the characters, Grantha characters from the Grantha Unicode block. So, but anyway, that's all part of the technical discussion. So, and apart from this, one important thing. So, I was talking about the printings. So, and apart from Maniprava, yet another important thing, as I mentioned earlier, was that the Grantha script was the main script used for the religious texts, especially the Vedic texts. Because here I did my basic Sanskrita and Vyakarana studies in Karnataka. So my teacher, who hails from a village in the hilly regions of Karnataka, about 100 kilometers from Gokarna, what is called the North Canara region, he told me that when he was a small boy, they used to have in Karnataka, and so far from Tamil Nadu right now, they used to have Grantha script books. His grandfather used to use Grantha script books. So because in South India, as Srimati Vidya mentioned earlier, so Nandi Nagari of the Maharashtra, northern Karnataka region, and versus Grantha. So that northern Karnataka represents the border of probably what is North India and South India as far as this one is concerned. The script dichotomy is concerned. So even in that region, Grantha script was what was used for the Vedic texts. So Grantha, because as I told you earlier, in the first decade of the 20th century itself, 1900s itself, we got the Grantha printing fonts. So because of that, the earlier books of the Yajurveda and Samaveda, and even some passages of the Rigveda, I do not believe that the entire Rigveda has been printed in Granthalipi so far. Definitely not the Atharva Veda. But anyway, so those texts, because South India is Krishna Yajurveda is the Veda Shakha which is most prevalent in South India, and so far out in Karnataka also they were using Grantha script only. And after much later, after Grantha books were published, Grantha books of the Vedas were published, Much later, Telugu books started coming, and only recently, as in 15, 20 years back when I was a student, that Kannada script books started coming for the Vedas. So, Grantha, the importance of Grantha in studying Vedic texts also, and there are lots of people who, sort of religiously stick to Grantha as against Devanagari. They say, no, I don't read Devanagari. You do have people like that. So, despite the huge prevalence of Devanagari and the huge number of texts that are available in Devanagari as opposed to Grantha, despite that, people are there who very specifically insist on Grantha. And even just yesterday evening, I had a request from a Vedic scholar who wanted to print the Upanayana Patrika of his brother's son in Grantha. So I said, no, are you going to go? But he has, there are people, so it's a good beginning. They say they want to use Devanagari as well as Grantha because they have people who don't read, who are not able to read Grantha, but they want to bring Grantha into the eyes of people all the same. And right now, thanks to the technological advances, right now this bar between two different scripts, I mean, you can have a single text automatically, almost instantaneously converted thanks to Unicode between Devanagari and Grantha. So we are publishing documents in almost 6 to 7 scripts at the same time from our Sri Kanchika Murti, whatever, and the Veda Dharma Paripalana Sabha, the documents which we publish for the periodical pujas, like Shankara Jayanti and so on, we do publish in multiple scripts. So people are, Grantha is being made more accessible, and we also have Tamil Grantha. We have, like as mentioned, yet another style which I did not specifically mention earlier, but it was an extension of the Tamil script. By just like we have now the Ja, Sha, Saha. They are used right now for both for English words and words from some other languages also. But this was a much more comprehensive extension of the Tamil scripts, using the additional consonants from Grantha, and instead of people who are not yet ready to read full-fledged Grantha with all the contents and all that, they can use this Tamil Grantha, the mix of Tamil and Grantha, the second and third and fourth consonants of each Varga being used from Grantha. So we do have those conveniences today. So I hope I have given a good, I don't know if this is good, you be the judge of that. I have given an overview of the history of Grantha and how Grantha is right now where we are today, and definitely in the forthcoming sessions by other scholars, we will be looking into the technical on one side and the manuscript aspects of Grantha in much more detail. So because I was asked to give an introductory talk on Grantha, I can just give an extempore presentation. If anything else is required, Srimati Vidya, any other particular topic you would like me to address?
There have been 2 questions in the Q&A section. One person says, is the Kumbakonam Sharada Press script available as a font today?
No, not as an electronic font. No, not right now. But we do have, not apart from Notas Sanskrita, we do have one font called Sampradaya, which is also a Unicode font, I believe. Vinodh should correct me here if I'm wrong. Vinodhji has much more, he's much more up to date on that particular topic, on the technical availability of fonts. Sampradaya is a Unicode Grantha font, isn't it, Vinodh?
Yeah, but it's based on the IIT font, basically. I'll talk about it during the
so we'll discuss it later. So at this point, the Kumbakonam Sharada Press script is not available as an electronic font currently. So, and in Parishalas, yet another question I see, in Parishalas, is Vedam taught following Grantha, or do they follow Sanskrit script? So let me take this opportunity to give a gentle correction. There is no such thing as the, strictly speaking, as the Sanskrit script. What is, obviously, what is referred to is Devanagari. So Sanskrit, I wrote a few years back, I wrote an article in Samskrita Bharati Sambhashana Sandesha called Katishu Lipishu Sanskritam Likhyate. So I gave samples of Sanskrit words being written right from Mongolia in the Swayambhu Lipi, And they also have yet another script called Hefte Dorbalji, or the Mongolian square script, in which they also have written Buddhist mantras in Sanskrit. And so far north and so far south, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we do have Bali and other scripts also, I mean, other islands of Southeast Asia, having the letters required for writing even the very rare letters also. So there is no such thing as the Sanskrit script. Anyway, that is something that Prasanga just wanted to mention, because I keep correcting people. There is no called the Devanagari script. So in Veda Pathshalas, as I mentioned earlier, there are people who really, sort of religiously stick to Grantha. They insist, the teachers who insist on Granthas, including myself. I insist on, even though the text, the Krishna Yajurveda that I teach is available in both Grantha and Devanagari today, I insist on the Grantha script simply because due to the heavy prevalence of Devanagari, the usage of Grantha has gone down. So we would do learning Grantha is something that is useful for one. It's a matter of sort of a cultural pride. Maybe it's part of the culture of our the Tamil region, and of course it enables us. I still have people. I mean, a scholar who has been asking me for Kshetra Mahatmya Granthas, because Pariva, our Kanchi Shankaracharya Swami has asked him to perform and give discourses. But unfortunately, that scholar is not conversant with the Grantha script. But lots of these texts are still available only in the Grantha script. And I do not think we have a Grantha OCR, I mean, sufficiently efficient right now to immediately convert that PDF into, I mean, a scanned PDF into a Unicode text, so that we can convert it to Devanagari and give it to him. So, not knowing Grantha remains a stumbling block for those who want to read the old texts of Tamil Nadu, or the old publications of Tamil Nadu in the Grantha script. So, okay, and there is yet another thing, maybe it's slightly out of topic, but anyway, because I was asked, lots of Rigvedis, as I mentioned earlier, there is no single publication of the entire Rigveda in Grantha script to my knowledge. So lots of Rigvedis are more likely to know Devanagari than Grantha. And lots of Yajurvedis are more likely to know Grantha than Devanagari. And Samavedis are somewhere in between, because both books, Granthalipi book from printed at Kumbakonam, as well as the Devanagari book printed by Satyavrata Samashrami, both of them are quite common among Samavedis. So you do have that kind of a distribution also. So the both scripts are used, and it depends on the teacher probably. Right. What's the percentage of manuscripts available in Grantha? I will leave that question for the later manuscript scholar, Suganya ma'am, to answer that question. And okay, question to Vinodh G. Okay. Automated online software that does conversion. Of course, Shri Vinodh's Aksharamukha knows how many scripts right now? 30 plus. It knows it's
87.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very much behind the times. So yes, it does convert from Granthalipi to Devanagari. That is the direct answer to your question, and it converts into an umpteen number of other scripts as well. So, right, I think I have covered all the questions that were directed at me. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll just send, if you want, I'll send typed answers to the questions as well. Okay. Jai Shankara, Hara Shankara.
We will have the next speaker now. Not allowing me to put you on spotlight without the video.
Shriramana, I think you have to cut off the video probably.
Oh no, that's
No, your video is not on.
Vinodh ji, I think she asked you to switch on your
Yeah, your video is not on, Vinodh. Your video, thank you.
Vinodh, are you speaking or is it me?
You, Suganya.
Oh, so who is speaking now?
Me, apparently me. Okay. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking the organizers for having me here. Namaskaram to the fellow panelists and to the audience. And let me begin by congratulating everyone who has gathered here to learn the Grantha script. You've made a wonderful decision. So today I'm going to just tell you why it's a very good idea to learn Grantha. And in the process, I'll show you a few manuscripts and also early printed editions as well. So for that purpose, I'll need to share my screen, if that's okay. I have a PowerPoint. So for that, I'll present a view. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to give you, as I said, a few reasons to learn Grantha, hopefully, because I've had to learn it, and right now I'm very happy that I did learn it. One thing, perhaps, before I say anything else, is that we need to remember that Grantha is a script. It's not a language. A language might take years to learn, perhaps even decades to master, but a script will not take that much time. It'll take only a bit of effort and a little bit of practice, but its uses are immeasurable. Some of the uses Sharmaji already mentioned, but I will perhaps hopefully show you a few other uses for learning Grantha. Okay, to begin with, the Tamil script, just like the Tamil language, does not have all the letters to represent all the sounds that exist in Sanskrit. I think most of us know that. And Grantha is a script that has been used for many centuries to transcribe Sanskrit, especially in South India, since at least roughly the 5th century. There are historians here of the scripts. I'm not one of them. So in the southern region of India, Grantha was used to transcribe Sanskrit. And it just goes on to show that Devanagari and Sanskrit are not synonymous. No, Sanskrit is a language. It can be rendered into different scripts. And Grantha is one of the main scripts, I would tend to think, main scripts to represent Sanskrit. And actually, I also think that because Grantha and Tamil have a common ancestor, they look very harmonious together. I'll show you a few samples in a few minutes. And this aesthetic aspect is essential when writing in a mixed language, Tamil and Sanskrit in this case. Please remember this aspect because I'll come back to this in a minute. So I'm going to tell you what is the link between Grantha and me and why I'm here talking to you about Grantha for two main reasons. The first one is that I work on texts that are often transcribed using Grantha, fully or partially. I mostly work on Sri Vaishnava Manipravada texts. That's only one part of the literature that you find that is transcribed into Grantha, but still, this is my experience. So I'll mostly refer to this literature, Sri Vaishnava Manipravada literature. And also whenever I mention collections of manuscripts or books that I use, even if they are not in Sri Vaishnava Manipravada, they still belong to Sri Vaishnavas. And it makes a difference because Grantha is much, much bigger than this small part. So what is Sri Vaishnava Manipravada? To begin with, I think everybody knows Sri Vaishnavas are Vaishnavas who are followers of Ramanujacharya. And Manipravada is a hybrid language. I mean, these people believed in the Ubhaya Vedanta. They believed in the Pramanya of both the Vedas, the Sanskrit Vedas, and what they called as the Tamil Veda, which is the Nalayara Divya Prabandham. So they wrote both in Sanskrit and Tamil, and they used also a hybrid language called Manipravada, which usually has a Tamil structure with Sanskrit vocabulary. Okay, so they mostly had texts which had both Tamil and Sanskrit. So it's very, very nice to have a very harmonious set of two scripts used for rendering this hybrid language, but not just, as I will show you. And the second reason why Grantha has been super useful for me is that I have a manuscript project that is funded by the British Library. And about in my collection, there was a question, how many % of manuscripts are in Grantha? I have no clue because I haven't seen all the manuscripts that exist. What I can say is that the collection that I use for my project, well, about 85 to 90% of them are in the Grantha script. And it's been quite a struggle to find somebody who can read Grantha, who can also catalog. And it's a very, very good thing that I can actually read Grantha, because otherwise the project would have been in sheer trouble. Yeah, so I'm very grateful that I pushed myself to learn Grantha. Okay, so from this point onwards, now that you know why I have needed Grantha in my career, I'll move on and show you a few sample Grantha in manuscripts. This one, for example, from one of my collections is, it's Tattva Mukta Kalapa, so it's a theological treatise by Vedanta Deshika, Sri Vaishnava Schola Vishishtadvaitin, and this whole work is in Sanskrit. So this whole manuscript is totally in Grantha. I don't know how well you can see, but it looks from far away, it looks very much like Tamil, but when you get closer, you see the differences. Okay, so again, I would like to repeat myself and say that, you know, Grantha goes beyond just Manipravala and beyond just the use that the Sri Vaishnavas had of this. But the Sri Vaishnavas definitely use Grantha quite a lot. So this was the first sample manuscript that I wish to show you. The next one, as I said, it's not just Vaishnava. So I found in one of my collections this Namavali for Shiva. So I've taken this bit and placed it here. So you have, for example, Om Ahirbudhnaya Namaha. So apparently Shaivagama related manuscripts also use the Grantha script. It's not my field, but they do exist. This manuscript, for example, it's fully in Grantha. There are also copies of the Ramayana, for example, the Sundarakanda, because people do Parayana, and it seems about 150 years ago. These manuscripts roughly are dated to about 150 years ago. People could read, and not necessarily Brahmins. It seems that some of these works were offered to non-Brahmin people as well. So they could read Grantha. It's amazing. So this, for example, falls into the Purana category. It's the Kaveri Mahatmyam. This is a wonderful copy, very, very neat. It's as if it was copied, 40 years ago? No, it's over 150 years ago. It's a beautiful sample. It's fully in Grantha. And then this one, for example, it seems like it's a Kavya. And it seems that like it might be unpublished. It's known as the Vaidarbhi Vasudevi. Yeah? I'm still checking whether it's been published or not. So just so you know, there are perhaps hundreds of works that are still lying among bundles of manuscripts in all the corners of Tamil Nadu, waiting, screaming to be taken out and published. And they are also rotting because of the weather in southern India. You know, it's humid, it's hot. So ask me, I know, I deal with manuscripts. It's terrible. All sorts of insects live in them. It's a matter of time. Time is ticking. And many, many of them will be in Grantha. So the more people learn Grantha, the better it is to safeguard these manuscripts, but also bring to light all the works that have remained unpublished. Just think of the poets who've spent their whole lives writing, composing these kavyas, etc. So this is one such work that apparently hasn't been published. As I said, I'm still checking. Okay, so it's not just about religious work. It's not just dharmic works that have been, people have been using Grantha for, at least not the Sri Vaishnavas. For example, okay, an erudite Sri Vaishnava, like other people, I'm not saying that the others are not erudite. I'm just speaking about what I know, and it's very limited. It's limited to the Sri Vaishnavas. They, for example, learned Nyaya, logic, Mimamsa, which is an examination of the Vedic text, grammar, Vyakarana, like here, this is a work, I think, of Vyakarana, astronomy, astrology, you name it. And in their collection, all these works, which are totally non-religious, are in Grantha, because of course these works, most of these works, especially if they deal with Sanskritic matter, they are in Sanskrit. Of course, it's South India, so I've seen more manuscripts using Grantha than I have seen Nandinagari or Devanagari. But as I said, my experience is very limited. Okay, so here I move on and show to you a Manipravada manuscript. This is one of the works by Vedanta Deshika's Chillare Rahasyangar. I think it's the Tattva Padavi, if I'm not wrong. And here you will see the perfect harmonious marriage between the Tamil and the Grantha scripts. Clearly, because they have a common ancestor. I have just extracted this one line. If you can see here, you have Sarveshwaran here, which is in Grantha, Tiruvadigalai, which is in Tamil, Upayopeya, which is in Grantha, and again Ngalaha, which is in Tamil. And here the scribe goes a bit crazy, not crazy, sorry, I should say something like idiosyncratic, because he writes Patti almost with stacked Grantha-like characters rather than write it in Tamil, because obviously if they're switching from one script to another, it's very easy to confuse the two, but it doesn't really matter because we know what he is saying. Ujjevika and then Vendum is in the next line. So as you can see, it's very, very harmonious, because I'm going to show you examples of printed editions where other scripts are used to replace Devanagari. It's not that nice looking. Okay, anyway. This is a Paduka Sahasram Savyakhyana manuscript. I'm just showing this to you because these are drawings that represent the Chitrakavis of Swami Deshikan. And all these letters that you see, they are also in Grantha. Okay, now let's move on to printed editions. Like, I found this very, very beautiful edition. I think people did start publishing using Grantha, although it may have been rather a challenge to find a typesetter or even an editor who could or even would typeset Grantha, because it was not so popular as Tamil, for example. But still, some early publications do use Grantha fully, sometimes to transcribe Sanskrit. As you can see, this is beautiful. I don't know if you can see Shri Ranganatha Paduka here. This is actually the emblem also of the Shri Rangam Srimad Andavan Ashramam. And you can also see here, there's Grantha here, Shri Ranga, oh gosh, I don't have my glasses, so I can't really see what's in there. Shri Ranga Divya Mani Paduka. Is what it says here. Shri Ranganatha, thank you. I should wear my glasses. Thank you. Okay, so from this edition, you have the next page, where you can see all the Sanskrit passages are rendered entirely in Grantha. It's amazingly good looking. And it's, as you can see, it's 1911, but it's very well preserved. And the Tamil text is rendered in Tamil. I didn't even notice this initially because it's also harmonious. Okay, and then there are some editors around the same time, sometimes later on, who realize that not everybody knows Grantha. Okay, this is an edition of the Thiruvaimuri commentaries by, say, Krishnamacharya. It's 1925, barely a few years after the other book was published, but he realized that he's leaving people out, he's excluding people by not offering a means for them to read if they did not know Grantha. So what he does here is he gives a quotation in Grantha and he follows it up with a Tamil transliteration. Okay, so this is what this edition does. All the editors do all sorts of different things, and this is one of the ways they try to make the Sanskrit text accessible to everybody. Okay, this is an 1886. As you can see, it's older than the text that I have shown you, but here you already see the struggle of the editor. Maybe he didn't have access to a typesetter in Grantha, or maybe he thought it would keep people out. So what he does is he picks a few characters in Grantha where the Tamil cannot rightly or convey with accuracy the Sanskrit sounds. But what happens is they're not very consistent, and it's hard to be consistent sometimes. And although it looks very nice, Well, it's a good choice. Why not? But it still needs to use, the Grantha, although it's a hybrid Tamil Grantha. So it becomes like truly Maniprabhala in one more ways than one. This made reading easier for the Tamil people. Okay, this is a copy of the Srimad Rahasya Navanitam, also by Swami Deshikan. It's a Chillare Rahasyam. I didn't find a date, but what you can see here is that the Grantha is used for the verses. But if you go down here, the footnote, only Tamil is used, no Grantha, not even for the Sanskrit works. They must have had their reasons. I can't get into them here. Time is ticking. I have barely 1 minute left. Okay, this is an edition of an extremely important text for the Sri Vaishnavas, for the Vishishtadvaitin, Srimad Rahasya Trayasaram, 1919. You can see that they use Grantha for the verses, but the title is in Tamil. They want to make sure that everybody knows what the book is about. Just imagine the person picking up to buy the book and realize they don't even know what the book is and then leave it aside. No, they didn't want to take the risk. And then within this, they do quote the verses in Grantha, but in a footnote, they give the transliteration in Devanagari. It becomes so complicated for the typesetter, but also for the reader. Why didn't people just go and learn Grantha? It would have been so much easier. That's what I'm suggesting to you. I think we should actually go and read Grantha. Make life easier, and it'll also look very, very nice, much nicer than this. And then as Sharmaji pointed out, the Telugu script was used, because for political reasons, before the Tamil land and the Telugu lands were split, they were together. So Telugu was a more accessible language. So some people, this is a copy of the Guru Parampara Prabhavam, also Sri Vaishnava, fully, even the Tamil and the Sanskrit, both of them were published in Telugu because Telugu has all the sounds that Sanskrit has. They could replicate, you can represent all of them, and also most of the sounds, Tamil sounds, not all of them, a couple of them can't. And sometimes they made the choice of rendering the whole text in Tamil, except for the Sanskrit verses. They used Tamil, the Telugu, for example. Okay, why not? After they became separate states in Tamil Nadu, they got further and further away from Telugu. It's not really a good option, and they don't really stick together, do they? And even when you look at this, it's easy for me to read. For example, I'm very, very I have much ease reading the Devanagari, so I'm really happy when I see Devanagari, but it's not aesthetically pleasing, as you can see. It really stands out. The Devanagari stands out from Tamil, which would not be the case if we were using Grantha. Okay, anyway, this is a 1980 copy of the Rahasya Trayasaram. Okay, some people decided that it's probably not worth taking the trouble. So this is an edition of the Thiruvaimuri and its commentaries. It's a 1975 publication, and the whole thing was rendered in Tamil. Why not? It makes things very, very easy for the Tamil speakers, but we lose on accuracy. However, are you going to read those verses in Sanskrit without making mistakes? I don't know. Well, everybody, I think, is aware of this choice of rendering in Tamil with numerical diacritics. Sthalam, you have tatu, which is tha. Prabhava, pa, pa, ba, bha. Personally, in my mind, it goes pa, pa, ba, bha. Okay, it's the fourth. I have to stop every time I see these numerical diacritics. Apparently, some people find it really good, very good. But just go and read Grantha, it's much easier. And it's really nicer. But as it's sort of, people have explored all sorts of things, but thankfully Grantha, I think, is coming back for all the reasons that I have mentioned. As Sharma ji said also, in the Vedic Patashalas, apparently also in the Agamic schools, they are using books that use Grantha. It's a very, very good thing. I'm, for example, also contributing my might. This is my book that was published in 2018. I also insisted upon using the Grantha plus Tamil for representing Perivachan Pillai's commentary, Manipravalam commentary, which uses Tamil and Sanskrit. So I think it's very, very important to preserve the tradition of combining Grantha and Tamil. okay, it's very important also to bring these texts to the general public. So I perfectly understand people who use Devanagari or the numerical letters, because for them it's very important to bring the text to people so that people have access to those texts. But for people like me, that is important. But what is also important is to bring back into common general use this historical script. Okay, so concluding words. So if you want to work on texts that use Grantha like I do, then you'll have to learn Grantha. And if you also want to work with or preserve manuscripts, especially the ones that use Sanskrit works, I mean, fully Sanskrit or partial Sanskrit works, it's going to be difficult to do that without knowing Grantha, especially in South India. So I just imagine all the hundreds of perhaps thousands of manuscripts that have been piled up that wait to be, taken out of darkness. So it's essential to learn Grantha. Once again, remember, it's only a script. It's very easy to learn, and just a bit of practice, you'll be able to do it. Okay, it's much, much easier to read it from a printed text than from a manuscript. But first things first, please learn it, how to read Grantha from printed text, and then you can move on and see how to read them from manuscripts. So welcome everybody. I think it's a very wise decision to come and learn Grantha, which is a very, very historical script. And please enjoy the process of learning Grantha as well, especially with Vinodh. Welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was very enlightening for a lot of us. And since we have, at least for the first introductory session, we might be extending the time a little bit. So over to Vinodh.
Yeah, sorry about it. I think you have to overshoot by like at least by 15 minutes. I'm supposed to start speaking at 4:25.
That should be okay. If people have to leave, they will catch up on the recordings. Thank you. And my apologies.
So Suganya talk about why we have to learn Grantha, why Grantha is important. And I have to agree with her. Grantha is one of the oldest scripts of India, which have been in continuous use. It's one of the named scripts. It's one of the scripts that are named in Lalita Vistara, where the Buddha gets a list of like 64 scripts. He starts with Brahmi, Kharoshti, and he then lists Dravida Lipi, which probably refers to Grantha, give or take, or Tamil, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, and there are so many books and so many manuscripts that are lying around and nobody can read them, which is very, very sad. So I'm glad you guys are here. And this week, we wouldn't be starting to learn the script. I will introduce like how to install the fonts, what are the fonts available, how to like render Grantha in your computers. I think that's important. So that when you start like from next week, you guys can learn and type, do some self-study so that let me share my screen if that's all right. Here we go. So yeah, so welcome. If someone just said Swagatam, Suswagatam. So yeah. So first I'll talk about the computational resources. Like 20 years ago, there were hardly any fonts on Grantha. And there were some fonts, they were either hard to get or they were like literally unusable because it wasn't easy to use them. But since the past like 10 years ago, Elmer Kripath had created a font using the Bengali code point, and there are now actually Unicode fonts for Grantha. So let me just show you the fonts available for Grantha. So based on my knowledge, there are at least around like 6 Unicode fonts for Grantha, right? One is the Notosans Grantha. Let me make it a bit bigger. Right. One is the Notosans Grantha, which was done by Google. it's not the traditional type. They wanted to make it like Noto Tamil, which already existed. So it kind of looks like that. And you also have the Noto Serif Grantha, where it has a variable width. And you have something called Sampradaya, which was based on an IIT font, which was done like 2003, 2002, long time ago. And one important thing people might not know that is like Grantha is very, very big in Sri Lanka, right? The Shaivites, all the Shaiva Agamas are in Grantha. So they do not like Devanagari for obvious reasons, because all the printed, the Kriya Agamas and everything is in Grantha. So even now, if you go to like any Agamas in like Chidambaram, right, or in somewhere in Sri Lanka, they still use Grantha and Mamlus, right, which have been printed. So these two fonts, Kurukal and Kunchitapada, it was developed in the 90s by someone in Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan Tamil, obviously. And yeah. And apart from that, you have another font, which is used by the Tamil Nadu Archaeological Department. And all these fonts are Unicode. So you can go and download any of these fonts, install them, and you will be able to like render Grantha text, right? Apart from that, if you are using OS X, Macintosh, that is, if you have a Mac system, it comes with inbuilt Grantha support. You don't have to install any fonts. Mac on the fly supports Grantha internally, right? Which is good. Hopefully, one might expect that in the future, at some point, Windows will also do the same, right? So all these fonts are free. I will share the presentation. You have the links to all these sites. You can go and select them, right? You just have to click download. Work. I think my Netflix. So yeah, you just have to click download. You can download the fonts. You just have to download it. And yeah. And you just have to install it. As simple as that. And you should be able to render Grantha on your system. Right. Apart from that, you want to select, okay, Vinodh, I have a font which can display Grantha, but how do I write or compose in Grantha? So we have another tool for that, which I developed a while ago. It's called Grantha. I'll share the links for these tools. You can directly type in Grantha. I want to say, let me change the size. You can type phonetically. Right. Yeah. And I suppose you can also change the font if you want. Font. And of course, you can change the size of the font. And you can say like, oh, okay, I have this thing, but I want to use in a system where I can't use a Grantha font. You can download this as an image. Which you can use in your presentations. Or you can generate as a PDF. Because you can use my phone. or what I usually do is like I basically type here, right? I open my Word. The font type Notice and Grantha because that's what I like. I can basically copy the text from here. Here. And I can do like whatever I want. It doesn't matter. Basically, that's Grantha being rendered on your computers, right? And it's all Unicode, it's all interchangeable, and it's all free. Right. And you can also do a few other things. You can also like change the styles. We can talk about it later. You can use different formats, say. It looks like a different. Yeah, different prompts and all that. Then one might ask, okay, I don't want to type in Grantha. What I want to have a text either in Devanagari or say in iTrans or in like some diacritical English. I want to convert that into Grantha. It's also doable. Let me take the text. I have this in English, or diacritical Roman actually. I want to convert it. I want to convert it from what this is called IAST, diacritical Roman. I just put it here and I get this in Grantha. Okay, like you can say, okay, I want Devanagari, right? Because Devanagari is these days a script used for Sanskrit. So I can also do that. Let me take another one, Devanagari. Take this one. I'm going to change it to Devanagari here. I'm going to take this here, and yeah, instantly you get this in Grantha. As usual, you can either copy it from here and paste it here in your Word documents, or you can take a screenshot. Or you can generate a PDF from it directly. So you can do lots of things. Yeah. And apart from like composing in Grantha and converting to Grantha, there are also like things where you can learn Grantha. So you have all the mappings here, all the vowels, and you have the consonants. You can change it from Tamil to Devanagari or to Roman. You can also do the combination of vowels and consonants, the different shapes. It lists everything here. You also can learn the conjuncts, the samyuktaksharas, how they are formed. It also lists like which letters are similar, which you should take care to like ambiguate. You can also list all possible. Say I want to list like the conjuncts of ka. It lists all the conjuncts samyuktaksharas of ka. This is everything is ma. If you want everything ending with ma, I click this. All these are like samyuktaksharas ending with ma. You can do that. You can also practice. Say if you want like learn the script by like games, you can do that. So I have like mapping. So you want to map first time is Grantha, second is either Tamil or Devanagari. I'll keep it for Tamil for a moment. So easy. Two, this is her, and so on. You can also like again. Again, you can do a small quiz of what the letter is. This hard, is similar, it's blue, it's small. You can check your answers and do again. Okay, now we have learned the alphabet. Now you want to go a bit further and practice learning words. You can also do that. I want to say, what's this? It's this one. That's right. And one more thing, you also have like different modes. This only the basic consonants and vowels. You can go from the combinations. You can go to samyuktaksharas, and you can go to very difficult samyuktaksharas. Right? That's wow. Which is somewhere over here, and this is which is over here. I know this all looks scary. That's what we're going to cover from next week. So hopefully by end of this next 3 sessions, you can like at least recognize some of these characters. And apart from that, say you want like practice by like reading the text completely in Grantha. There's also options to do that. You have to click reading practice here. And basically, if you select a text, let's say I'll do Sri Sukta, right? And I want to say like, okay, this is Grantha, but I want to help to read it. I want some say subtitles for that matter. I can say, okay, I want either Tamil help or I want in Devanagari. So I can say like Om, Hiranyavarnam, Harinim. So it helps you, like, you know, if you don't know a letter, it helps you like, oh, what that letter is, right? And it's easy. It's also good to like learn by reading, you know. You have two scripts side by side. Basically, as you learn it, right, your mind automatically tries to map and learns automatically. That's also a good one to learn a script, right? You take the text that you know, rendered it in Grantha and Devanagari, like parallel text, keep on staring at it. At some point, you will start learning Grantha, right, automatically. And that's how I learned Grantha, to be honest. And again, it lists the fonts that you can download here. One thing is, okay, we know you can say like, oh, all these tools are like online. Okay, I don't have internet access at home all the time. What if I want to compose Grantha offline? There's also an offline keyboard, which is in Keyman. You can download it, uninstall it. It installs the Noto font and the keyboard to type Grantha. I have it already here. So let me show you. I'll type Grantha directly in Microsoft Word. Let me make it smaller. Colors. I want to type in Grantha. I want to say in phonetic. I'm going to say Vinodh. Rajan. No. So I can type directly from here. And there's also a keyboard for Inscript. Some people might not like phonetic things. They can also actually literally get a Grantha keyboard, on-screen keyboard that can help you to type in Grantha. As you can see here. Let me make it bigger. Yeah. You can type it now. Who? Say you can basically touch type in case you don't want to like type phonetically. That's also possible. And one thing, is that for Grantha to be rendered, in Windows, you either need Windows 10 with the latest Office, that is Office 365, else Grantha won't be rendered in Windows Word, right? If you have like say Windows 7, Grantha wouldn't work. If you have like Office 2007, it wouldn't work. It has to be Windows 10 or Windows 11 or with Office 365. It has to be both. What if you have an older version of Windows, right? What if you have like Windows 7 or Windows, God forbid, Windows XP, right? What do you do then? All is not lost. You can still download something called LibreOffice. It's like Microsoft Office, but it's free and it's open source. It supports Grantha under all version of Windows. So you can basically have to download it. Let me take it to English, right? It's called LibreOffice Writer. It's free and it's open source. And you can type Grantha in any system. It doesn't matter whether you have Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows 8, or whatever it is. It will support Grantha. So let me type something here. Bigger. Yeah. It basically also supports typing in Grantha, right? And okay, that's fine. You can compose in Grantha. You can type documents in Grantha. Maybe what you want is like you already have maybe some documents already in Grantha, Unicode Grantha, or you want to convert like text either in like say in Telugu or Kannada in Grantha. What you have to do then? Then there's another tool called Aksharamukha. You can use that. Already here. Let me put it here. Right. I want to convert, say, let's say Telugu. Why not? I want to convert this into Grantha. I can basically put it here. Select Grantha. Lo and behold, everything is in Grantha. Right. You can also do the opposite. If I have something in Grantha, let's take something that we composed in Grantha. Let's take this right in Grantha, right? Let's assume it's here. I want to convert into Devanagari. Let me do that as well. Put it here, and I want this in Devanagari. There you go. So all these tools are free. They're online, so you don't have to even have to install anything. There's no installation. Just you have to type the URL and start using them. Yeah, this is a sample of Grantha rendered in Word. We should saw it already. This in LibreOffice Writer. We already saw it. And for the online Grantha support, any modern browser should support either Chrome, the latest version of Chrome, the latest version of Firefox, or Edge, right? Unless you're running, I don't know, Windows XP or Windows 7 or even something older than that, Grantha should be rendered online in any of the modern browsers. That shouldn't be a problem. That's all the online resources. And one more thing is like, okay, I have all these things. What if I want to have a book, that I can just go on my own pace, go back and read after all these sessions, right? So I don't forget it. There are lots of books, right? I think Vidya has done a workbook, which I think she will share at some point. And apart from that, there are like really, really good books. One thing I would like is like, of course, this is something. Something that I wrote, God forbid, 12 years ago. Basically, it gives you a step-by-step introduction to Grantha, right? All the vowels, how to read them, how to pronounce them, how to write the samyuktaksharas, just step by step, yeah, and it's in English. And there's another one, a bit more academic, so as to say. It also does the same thing, right? It gives a step-by-step introduction to Grantha. Yeah. Lots of words. It doesn't explain a lot about samyuktaksharas, but yeah, you get the idea. And apart from that, there's a book if you want to like practice writing it. There's a book to practice Grantha handwriting, which is really good. It basically says like how to write it, yeah, like where to start, where to end. It's really good. And there's also a book if you want something in Tamil. There's a book in Tamil, right? Again, it was printed in Jaffna in Sri Lanka, because I said Grantha is very, very important to them for the Shaivites, at least who follow the Shaiva Agamas. So you can see like all the instructions in Tamil, step-by-step introduction. You can see that, right? You can download all of these books are again free. It's out there. You can download them. So after each session, right, you can go back and read through them, and trying to reinforce what you have learned. Yeah. Because sessions, as Vidya said, is just a starting point. We can't teach everything. It's just 3 more weeks. And Grantha has sort of complicated behavior. And yeah, it would be nice to like complete all this and go back to these books and go through them and reinforce what you have learned. So our goal would be like at the end of the 3 sessions, at least some of you might be able to read this text, right? And understand, not understand, but basically can at least recognize few letters and read them. And that would be my goal. Even if half of you who are here can do that, I would be very, very satisfied. Yeah. And in the future, right, if you guys find any old books, right, in Grantha, this is, I think it's a Ramayana and the Sundarakanta of the Ramayana with, I think, the commentary, right? It's very, very beautifully typeset, right? It's so beautiful to look at. And if you guys have some old books that you find that you can read, you can transcribe to, read it for others, at least preserve it, right? That would be wonderful, right? And that's why we are doing this. All these beautiful books that typeset like 1800, like late 1800, like 1890s, 1880s, right? I had a look. The earliest printed book was Grantha was around 1870s, and that like basically create a metal typeset, And Grantha is not an easy script typeset. It's a huge pain, right? It's all the stackings and all the samyuktaksharas, right? And some people painstakingly and manually did all this work, right? And then at least one thing we could do is like make sure that all these things are preserved and we can actually read it and transfer it to the next generation, right? The point is like, even if you like scan these books, that's fine, it's been preserved. But if there's nobody to read them, what's the point of scanning them, right? What's the point of digitization if all this PDF, right, exists somewhere in, let's say, an archive, or DIL, the National Digital Library of India, DLI, right? And nobody can actually like read it. Right. So that's pretty much it. And let me stop my screen. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. There are a few. There aren't any. So, questions, that's pretty much it.
There is one question that is constantly being asked about OCR, that is, they want to know if somebody can paste an image or a PDF. Per my understanding, we do not have a Grantha OCR yet.
No, that is because it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort. It's mostly a lot of effort. And unless you have like 5 to 10 people creating parallel text in, like, say, in Devanagari and then Grantha, and using that to train it, it's hard. And there was somebody who was experimenting with doing Grantha OCR. Things like the books that have been printed, they're in a specific font, right? And you need like someone to read the books, transcribe them in Devanagari, and then feed it to the computers. It's a lot of manual effort. You have to generate a lot of data. So in the future, if any of you can read Grantha and can volunteer to do such sort of transcription, you can take any old books, transcribe that into Grantha and use that to train the OCR model. That would be good. But as of now, we don't have any, sadly. Any that would actually work, that's actually usable. That's the thing. Karthik.
Hey, I think just when you were mentioning this issue about not having OCR for Grantha, I really think something like Aksharamukha could be like a very powerful tool in building a corpora for training, right? You just take a truckload of the Devanagari scripts, convert it to Grantha, and you can build a. I mean, this will be, of course, for printed text. It will be much harder. This will be like an idealized training, but still, I think it may be the first step towards.
I think somebody, Shri, a friend of somebody I know, Shri did it, and it wasn't that bad. It would work out. But I don't know. I think something is better than nothing, right? Even if you're like 50% accuracy, it's something, right? And Suganya was talking about it as well. She works a lot of like a Grantha text, and she was like, anyway, like I just upload a PDF in Grantha and then it's Devanagari pops out magically. Yeah, I mean, like you can do a training corpora based on the fonts. You have like 6 fonts at least, so it's a different training data. Yeah, that's actually doable if somebody has time. They can actually mechanically generate the training data and do it.
So the only other question we have is, I think Karthik will answer the question about that Rudram Namakam Chamakam in Granthalipi.
Sure. I'm sure there are books available, but if you want, you can even write to me and I can create a PDF for you. So that should not be a problem, because it's thanks to Vinodh, we are able to easily typeset. I mean, I had zero knowledge of Grantham till about a couple of months back, and still my knowledge is very spotty. But even before knowing Grantham, I could very easily typeset lots of nice looking documents in Grantha. Thanks, Dr.
Actually, the Rudram Samakam and everything is available as a PDF, because the entire Yadisa Mantra Ratnakaram is available as a PDF. But unfortunately, I think one of our audience was also asking about Mantra, Maharnavam Mantra, Sharma. I think he was asking about Grantha script because of the context. But lots of these documents are not available on archive.org. So there are some Telegram groups, one of which I am part of, and Karthik ji is also part of that group called Vedika Pustakalaya. I don't know whether it is searchable and available publicly, but lots of Grantha books like Yadasamitra Ratnagaram and this Mahabharata and all these are available on that Telegram group only. They have not yet been uploaded to archive.org. Just the other day, one scholar from Kumbhakonam, he sent me an archive.org link for Kumbhakonam Mahatmyam. I think it is, I believe it's entirely in Grantha. It has been uploaded to archive.org by him. So slowly these things are, because lots of the content on archive.org is in Devanagari. Lots of books in Grantha are not yet on archive.org. I don't know why. Maybe because of the the user community is quite small. I don't know. But anyway, it could be uploaded in principle. But lots of these books are there in this one only. What should I say? In these groups only.
So next week we will start the proper session of where Shri Vinodh will take you through the learning process.
I see 3 hands rising up. What does it mean? They want to ask questions? Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
தமிழ்ல கேட்கலாமா?
கேளுங்களேங்க.
கேளுங்க.
இல்ல இப்போ இந்த மற்ற மொழியெல்லாம் நம்ம எழுதி பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ணோம் இல்லைங்களா? இந்த கிரந்தலிபிங்கிறது இப்போ படிக்க கத்துக்கிறது. இதை எப்படி வந்து நம்ம இந்த அபியாசம்னு ஒரு பேஜ் கூட காமிச்சிங்க இல்லையா? ஸோ எப்படி இதை பிராக்டிஸ் பண்றது? பார்த்து நம்ம இந்த எழுத்து வடிவத்தை வந்து பதிய வச்சுட்டு கத்துக்கணுமா எப்படி? ஏன்னா இது எழுதி பழகிறது இல்லை இல்லையா?
எழுதி பழக்கணுங்கிறது அதுதான் நாங்க புக் நான் காமிச்சேன் இல்லையா?
ஆமா.
நீங்க இந்த புக் பாத்தீங்கன்னா உங்களுக்கு எல்லாமே இதுல இருக்கும். உங்களுக்கு சரிங்களா? நீங்க இங்க ஆரம்பிச்சு நீங்க இப்படி போகணும்.
என்கிட்ட வந்து கிரந்தலிபி கையேடுன்னு ஒண்ணு இருக்கு.
ஓகே.
ஸ்வர்ணபுரி அவங்க வெளியே ஸ்வர்ணபுரி ஸ்ராம் ஸ்ரீதர்னு. ஆக்சுவலா நான் வந்து என்னோட மற்ற ஸ்லோகம் புக்கம் அது மாதிரி விஷயங்கள்லாம் வாங்கும் போது இந்த லிபிக்கான இதை பார்த்து ஒரு ஆர்வத்துல வாங்கிட்டு வந்தேன். இன்ஃபேக்ட் வாங்கும் போது இது எதுக்கு வாங்குறாங்கிற மாதிரி கூட அவர் பார்த்து அந்த புக் ஸ்டால்ல. எதுக்காக கேட்கிறேன்னா இப்ப இதை வந்து நம்ம எழுதி பழக்கணுமா? இதுல வந்து அவங்க பிக்சரோட போட்டிருக்காங்க எப்படி வந்து அந்த மூமெண்ட் இருக்கணும். இப்ப ஆனா இப்படி வட்டத்துல ஆரம்பிச்சு வரோம் இல்லையா? அது மாதிரி அவங்க நம்பர்ஸோட போட்டிருக்காங்க. கீழே இந்த அதுக்கான கட்டங்களும் கொடுத்துருக்கு எழுதி பழக. சோ அப்படிதான் இதை பழகணும்.
தமிழ் எழுதிய பல வருஷங்கள் ஆகுது.
இல்ல கிரந்த வடிவம் கிரந்தலிபி கையேடுன்ட்டு இதை எழுதிதான் பழகணும் இல்லையா?
உங்களுக்கு படிக்கிறதுக்கு கத்துக்கிறதுக்கு வசதியா இருக்கும். உங்களுக்கு நீங்க எழுதுறது இல்லையா? உங்களுக்கு மனசு நல்லா பதியும் உங்களுக்கு.
ஓகே. இப்ப நெக்ஸ்ட் வீக்ல இருந்து நீங்க இந்த ரெகுலரா டீச்சிங் ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுங்கிற போது இந்த வவல்ஸ்ல இருந்து ஆரம்பிப்பீங்க இல்லையா?
எப்படி எழுதுறது படிக்கிறது கத்துக்கிறது. ஏன்னா கிரந்தத்துக்கு தமிழுக்கு நிறைய ஒத்துமை இருக்கு. சரி. நீங்க ஈஸியா கத்துக்கலாம். பாக்கலாங்க.
ஆர்வமா எதிர்பார்க்கிறேன்.
ஓகேங்க.
So
leave it to the organizer. Fold பண்ணி வயர் எடுத்து.
Next question. Shriramachandran, Shivakumar Iyer and Amritavalli. Kelvi irka? Questions are there?
I think I have no question this time.
Okay.
Ramchandran.
Hello. கேக்குறதா?
Yes.
எனக்கு என்ன டவுட்னா எப்படி இந்த ஃபீல்ட்ல வந்து வர்க் பண்ணுறது? நான் வந்து இப்ப அந்த மேனுஸ்கிரிப்டாலஜி டிப்ளமா இருக்கேன். ஆல்ரெடி ஹலோ Hello.
Hello.
Hello, இப்ப கேக்குறதா?
எஸ், கேக்குறது சொல்லுங்க.
எப்படி நாங்க இந்த இது ஒர்க் பண்ணறது இந்த ஃபீல்டுலன்றதா எனக்கு டவுட்.
Suganya has left. Yeah. Karthik.
ஹலோ
ஹலோ.
ஹலோ வணக்கம், என் பேர் சிவகுமார் ஐயர். பேசலாமா? ஹலோ.
Previous question, Dr. Suganya can guide you, or we can find out more information எப்படி அந்த ஃபீல்டில் வேலை பண்றதுன்னு. நீங்க சில லோக்கல் மேனுஸ்கிரிப்ட் ஆர்கனைசேஷன்ஸ் அணுகலாம். அது ஒரு obvious source of reference.
And ESEO,
IFP Pondicherry, even Saraswati Mahal, GOML, in the Mari organizations would be a starting point. IGNCA and the Namami, you can write to some of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
ஹலோ.
Yes, இப்போ சொல்லு சிவகுமார் ஐயர், ப்ளீஸ் கோ ஆன்.
வணக்கம், என் பேர் சிவகுமார் ஐயர். நான் பெங்களூர்ல இருந்து பேசுறேன். சாரி, ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் ஐ அப்பாலஜைஸ். நான் வந்து ரொம்ப லேட்டாக தான் ஜாயின் பண்ணேன் பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் சம் அதர் அர்ஜென்ட் இஷ்யூங்கிறதுனால. இந்த இதில் ஐ ஹாவ் அ ஹியூஜ் கலெக்ஷன் ஆஃப் கிரந்தா புக்ஸ் இன்ஹெரிட்டட் ஃப்ரம் மை ஃபாதர். ஸோ மை இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இஸ் பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் திஸ். அந்த புக்கில் உள்ளதெல்லாம் என்னன்னு படித்து தெரிஞ்சுக்கணுங்கிற ஒரே இதனால தான் நான் வந்து ஐ வாஸ் சர்ச்சிங் ஃபார் திஸ். இந்த நீங்கள் இப்போ காமிச்ச டூல் வந்து அதுலேருந்து டவுன்லோட் பண்ணிக்க முடியுமா? ஏன்னா நான் லாஸ்ட்டை வந்து ஜாயின் பண்ணதுனால எனக்கு கொஞ்சம் சின்னதாக ப்ரீஃப் பண்ணீங்கன்னா ஐ வில் பி மோர் கிரேட்ஃபுல் டு யூ.
We'll send you the screen, like the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, thank you.
We'll share the presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if nobody else has any questions, we will wind up the session for today. Thank you very much. இங்க வந்திருந்த எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றி. அடுத்த வாரம் இதே சமயம், please note for anybody dialing in from countries which have time change, we will stick to IST. Thank you.